Good morning. Good morning. How we doing? It's the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Richie. Riding solo today on this beautiful Thursday, and we are going to get into it. Major, major NFC North battle going down in Detroit between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. A Lions win would go a long way in solidifying themselves as the likely NFC North winner. They will, of course, be rooting for a Minnesota loss as they have a game in hand over both the Packers and the Vikings head to head so far this year. Both teams going to be a little banged up. So I believe that this potentially could be a game where you're going to see some points flying on the board. We are going to get into that. The GOAT of all quarterbacks, Tom Brady, taking some shade and taking some aim at today's quarterbacks. One in particular that left the New York Giants and is currently a member of the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to get into that. One of the greatest battle rap songs yesterday had its 23rd birthday. I'm talking about Ether from the incomparable Nas. We are going to get into that as well. What is the significance of December 4th? Yesterday, and the same as 23 years before, it was his rival Jay-Z's birthday. So we're going to hit on the impact of what that battle between Jay-Z and Nas, particularly referencing Ether, did for hip hop. I've got a couple more games that I'm going to be highlighting, kind of like a part A for the new NFL week. And I'm going to hit on some NFL Hall of Fame snubs and one particular player who should be in the Hall of Fame already that finally is getting his just due push. Talking about Sterling Sharp. So definitely going to hit on that as well. But we are going to start this up in Detroit. The 9-3 Packers heading to Detroit, taking on the 11-1 Detroit Lions. Jair Alexander will be a no-go for the Green Bay Packers, as well as Corey Ballentine, to name a couple. Lions are also going to have some injuries, as their offensive line is going to have to definitely rely on some depth pieces. And I think this kind of layout really suggests that both offenses could get it going. I also believe that this could be a night for the kickers because inside the 20s, these teams may very well bend but not break. One thing that I do like about tonight's game is if you like running backs, I think this could be a game where some of these great running backs go off. The Detroit Lions have undeniably, in my mind, the best running back tandem in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I have those guys in two different fantasy leagues, and they have been producing at a ferocious clip. A running back that I think has been overlooked this year, possibly because of the exploits of what Saquon Barkley has done this year and the two guys I just mentioned. But Josh Jacobs, the first-year Packer, coming over from the Raiders, this dude has been everything the Packers could possibly want and ask for. Over the course of the Matt LaFleur era, it seems like the Green Bay Packers in general, not just in the playoffs, but also during the courses of the last few regular seasons, divisionally speaking, feel a lot better playing on the road. Good friend of the show, Brett Bandick, he suggested over the years that the Packers were a little too finesse in the past. I don't see it this year. I don't see them as that much of a finesse team. I really enjoy what the Packers have done from a defensive standpoint. Initiating a lot of interceptions. I think Xavier McKinney, former New York Giant, first-year Packer, he has had a phenomenal season. You take a guy like a Rashawn Gary coming into his own. This is a defense that's getting it done. And when you consider that Jair Alexander has been missing time and they're still playing great defense, I think it speaks volumes about the coaching over there. The Bears over Thanksgiving. They and the Packers both had a game. The Packers did allow Miami to stick around for a while, but were truly never in trouble as they won by 2 scores. But the Detroit Lions definitely got tested and almost did lose to the Chicago Bears, a game that I thought the Lions actually came out kind of flat in. My prediction for the game, we are going into the 30s. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Give me the Green Bay Packers 34 over the Lions 30. I think Jordan Love is going to have a really good night, and I think the difference in this game is going to be a crucial Jared Goff mistake. If it falls the way I believe it will, this will be the first loss for the Detroit Lions at home. And this team has not lost a game since week 2. Last year, the Packers were able to win in Detroit on Thanksgiving, and the Lions were able to handle them in Lambeau. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Lions have won 3 of the last 4 years in Lambeau. But the Packers historically play well in Detroit, and I expect that trend to continue. Because the more I think about it, are the Lions really going to run away from the Packers and get up an insurmountable 3-game lead, which essentially would be a 4-game lead because that would be a sweep? I think the Packers find a way to get it done today, and I think this is a very intriguing matchup because while we know that one of these teams is going to be a division winner, probably one of these teams, assuming the Vikings don't get it, this is a division that's offering 3 quality playoff teams going into the dance. 3 of 7 are going to be coming from the North. And I think you can make a logical argument that all 3 have a legitimate chance to win the conference. This could be one of those years where it is the year of the wild card. Going way back to 2010, the Green Bay Packers won a Super Bowl as a wild card, a few years removed from when the New York Football Giants did that in 2007. But the Green Bay Packers, for the win tonight, despite missing more people than the Lions are. I think the Packers are ready for this moment. I think they're going to go to the film. They have gone to the film to see what went wrong. And, if we're being honest, I think the wet field and the crummy conditions was a bit of an equalizer in the first matchup. I think the Green Bay Packers are a better team today than they were 5, 6, and 7 weeks ago. Packers for the win, in my humble opinion. We are going to be moving it along. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw my mug out there. I am not all the way awake, guys. And the reason I got the camera off is that I've been having some issues with the laptop. So it's a lot easier to navigate on my phone here for this one. Particularly when I do the solo shows, I prefer this. And, try to put out a little bit of art for you guys. Put together a little bit of a presentation. But I'm going to move this along. I'm going to move this along to the hip-hop realm for a minute. Just bear with me. Nas Escobar, one of my all-time favorite rappers out of the Queensbridge projects. Just truly a treasure if you are a hip-hop fan. Since getting with Hit Boy, his production level for his music has just been utterly amazing. Nothing more to say about it. Kind of just victory lapping and solidifying his legacy as one of the one and all-time great hip-hop performers. This is a guy whose career spanned from 91 to the current. He's been around for all kinds of different eras of rap. He was around when New York had so many great MCs going for the crown, whether it be Rakim, the late great Notorious B.I.G., Jay-Z, among others. Yesterday marked the 23rd anniversary that he dropped Ether, track 2 on Stillmatic, which in my opinion followed probably the greatest intro in the history of hip-hop. There was a long-standing feud with Jay-Z and Nas, ranging from just a pure dedication, want, need, and desire to be in the number 1 spot in the city of New York and beyond. But there was a lot of pettiness also. Nas released Takeover on the Blueprint, one of his best albums. Some people feel that it is his best album. You have the Black Album that gets a lot of credence to that, or his very first album, Reasonable Doubt. But as the decade was turning into the 2000s, subliminally on a lot of Rockefeller Productions, some of Jay-Z's guys on the label, as well as Jay-Z, kind of took minor pot shots at Nas that if you were really listening to the Triple Entendres, you could kind of see it for what it was worth. Nas responded with Ether, as well as going over an old school Rakim beat. Jay-Z kind of took the lowest blow with a song called Super Ugly. But most hip hop heads, most people from any and all hip hop publications, crown Nas the winner. And I think the positive thing about this hip hop battle that went down in the early 2000s is that both these men learned lessons from the previous decade, the 90s, where the two biggest heavy hitters in the rap game, unfortunately, were both taken way before their time. And a decent chunk of it was predicated off of blurring the lines. You know, I'm talking about Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. May they both rest in peace. I think what made this battle so great is that no matter how ugly it got from a verbal level and even on a personal level on certain things, because the radio stations were really picking sides too. Whereas Power definitely was on the side of Nas in New York, whereas Hot 97 was undeniably Jay-Z. Years later, these two buried their hatchet, got together on stage, and also contributed on Nas's album Hip Hop is Dead on a great track called Black Republican. But the biggest message that could be learned from the maturity of these two rap legends is that they kept it on wax. It should never go the route of violence. And that is something that I think gets forgotten even in today's times, where you see so many senseless killings off of competitive fuel or other reasons in the rap game that have really turned off quite a few people. But Nas, Stillmatic, genuinely, in my opinion, one of the better albums in his catalog. And it was quite the battle. It was quite the battle going back to the early 2000s. Back to football for a minute. I'm going to hit you with a game that's being played twice in the last 3 weeks. The Cleveland Browns will be heading to Pittsburgh, flip their schedules 3-9 at 9-3. The Steelers look to avenge their loss from week 12. The Browns are coming off a wild loss to the Denver Broncos, a primetime game, which saw Jameis Winston really light it up, but unfortunately throw too many picks. Bo Nix has been phenomenal for those Broncos. As the game goes, 2 weeks ago, the Cleveland Browns upset the Pittsburgh Steelers in a very crummy condition in the dog pound. It's going to be very cold yet again. The Browns, I think, right now are much better than their 3-9 record would suggest. Since Deshaun Watson had a season-ending injury and Jameis Winston has came into this position, I believe the Browns look like a team that they were probably supposed to be. And, you know, this is a team that has always played stingy good defense. You have a phenomenal player like a Myles Garrett. Running back Nick Chubb is getting healthier every time he hits the field. Lost season for the Browns. However, I do expect this game to be close. You know, the last time these guys played, the Steelers were coming off that big win against divisional rival, the Baltimore Ravens. It had letdown written all over it. Short week, playing a division rival after winning an emotional game at home against your biggest rival in that division. This too was going to be close, but this time I have a different outcome. Give me the Steelers 20 and give me the Browns 17. I think the difference in this game is going to be the Steelers make a couple of field goals that the Browns do not make. But I still expect this game to be close. Most of these North games are, regardless of records. And you've seen it time and time again this year with a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, who unfortunately just cannot stop a nosebleed. But Joe Burrow's having an MVP caliber season. But I like the home team here. Steelers in a close one. And the Steelers are quietly making a case and setting up a path to potentially have the playoffs run through Pittsburgh. Of course, Buffalo is going to have a say in that, as will the defending two-time back-to-back champion Kansas City Chiefs. But the Steelers are quietly getting it done. And every time Russell Wilson starts, he takes another step looking like the guy that a lot of people said that he was a couple of years ago. He didn't get the fairest shake in Denver, unfortunately. But right now, the Steelers playing really good football. And I think this is a game they're going to win. From really good football to the polar opposite of that, we're heading to East Rutherford, New Jersey, as the New Orleans Saints at 4-8 travel to take on my beloved New York Giants, one of the worst teams in the league at 2-10. All-Pro Dexter Lawrence is out for the season. He's shut down. The New York Giants are going to be missing multiple linemen. As Evan Neal did not practice this week, he is very unlikely to play. Jermaine Illuminor still injured. Andrew Thomas out for the year. And ultimately, I think that spells a lot of trouble for Drew Lock. The Saints, too, are nursing a decent amount of injuries. And Taysom Hill, who has been used as quite the weapon, whether lining him up at tight end, you could use him as a gadget player to use his arm and make some plays. He will not be going. But ultimately, even with a healthy Dexter Lawrence, something that the Giants have struggled with all season long is stopping the run. Their secondary has also been in shambles. Deontay Banks, time and time again, proving that he is not a cornerback one. Travis Hunter's out there. Draft, should the Giants get the 1 pick. That is a guy that I would love to see wearing the blue. Give me the Saints 20. Give me the Giants 16. I've got David Carr leading the Saints for a late touchdown to put the Giants away for good. And similar to many other Giant games, I think they lose this game because they are not able to get in the end zone enough, and they will have to settle for too many field goals. And, while I don't necessarily like losing, I must admit that there is zero value in winning a game like this. Give me the Saints for the win. Moving it along, New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. This was a game coming into the year that I think a lot of people had higher expectations for. But the Dolphins right now, despite missing Tua for as long as they missed him, are in a position to still make the playoffs, albeit a long shot. They come in at 5-7. New York Jets, it seems like they create ways to lose football games. Coming into the year, they were highly touted as a team that was going to get it together after last year's disappointment, losing Aaron Rodgers in the first series of his season. But it has not come to fruition. Robert Saleh gets fired. Nathaniel Hackett gets stripped of offensive play calling duties. The defense looks frustrated. The Hassan Reddick holdout for a decent chunk of the year definitely messed things up. They bring in Mike Williams. They get rid of Mike Williams. They bring in Devontae Adams. This Jet team just seems like they have never totally bought in. And the crazy thing is, they looked better with Zach Wilson. I think the perennial MVP candidate, the 4-time MVP winner, the 1-time Super Bowl champ, and the surefire first ballot Hall of Famer will find a home next year if he chooses to play. There has been speculation that the marriage that makes the most sense is actually the New York Football Giants. I'm not sure if the Giants are ready to take on that kind of personality. But as a bridge quarterback, bringing in a guy like Aaron Rodgers should still not disturb whatever you're doing at the quarterback position next. If you want to go the safer route, I think a guy like Jameis Winston would be a hell of a mentor for whoever the Giants should draft, assuming they take a quarterback in one of the first 3 rounds. As the game goes, I do expect the Jets defense to play hard. Miami's offense has not been as good as it has in previous years. But the game is in Miami Gardens, and I have reason to believe that the Dolphins will do enough to win this thing. Give me the Dolphins 23. Give me the Jets 17. Dolphins for the 6-point victory. And Jonnu Smith out of FIU, he has really been hooking up with Tua Tagovailoa and becoming his favorite target over the past month or so. And Jalen Waddle has been taking steps in looking like a number one receiver. I would say that the really big surprise this year is that Tyreek Hill has fallen off a cliff in fantasy. There's a lot of reasons why this has happened. One of the biggest ones is that Tua missed so much time. He had that week 2 concussion early against Buffalo, missed over a month. And that's part of the reason why Miami sports the record that they do. And Raheem Mostert, far cry from the player he was just a year ago when he was tied with Christian McCaffrey for the NFL lead in touchdowns. This year, he has been distanced by Devin Achan. And if Mostert wants to play next year or further, I believe that he will find a new home. We'll see how that plays. Give me the Dolphins for the win. Going to take a little break off of these game picks. And I want to talk about this man, Mr. Tom Brady, taking aim at today's quarterbacks. One in particular, I'm going to start with former Giant, current Viking, Daniel Jones. Brady made comments recently that if he were Daniel Jones and if he got demoted to the third string, ultimately the practice squad, before Jones asked for his release from the Giants, they had him playing safety in practice, which is definitely an insult upon injury, so to speak. This is a guy that the New York Giants rewarded with a massive contract after their improbable 2022 playoff run. A guy that, on some metrics, they prioritized over Saquon Barkley. We can revisit that. Giants did give Barkley an offer in 22, one that he declined. Ultimately, he's in Philly. He's balling out. He's happy. Jones had a nightmarish 2 seasons since taking the money. He blew out his knee last year in Vegas. His offensive line was in shambles last year. He was getting hit at a ferocious clip. This particular season, things just did not pan out in any way, shape, or form for Jones. We'll see if he can get the good start, the restart with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. But I take issue here with Tom Brady for one particular reason. I call it a short memory. In 2019, Tom Brady essentially quit on the New England Patriots because he didn't feel that they were bringing him in enough weapons. And I do believe that he was prioritizing himself as bigger than the team. He goes to Tampa, he brings Gronk with him, and it's a loaded super team that Tom Brady took to the bowl that very next year, winning in the pandemic 2020 season. He had 2 really good years in Tampa. Year 3, one to forget, his final year in the league. But the point I'm making is, at that juncture of Tom Brady's career, it was proven that he needed that kind of team around him to get to that level. And there's nothing wrong with winning, and there's nothing wrong with doing whatever you have to do to win. But I guess from an authenticity level, it seemed like very LeBron of him in the sense of bringing the Avengers together in Tampa. The year before Tom Brady was in Tampa, Jameis Winston threw for $5,000 for that team. Now, granted, he threw 30 picks. I think the point I'm trying to make is that Tampa was already set up rather well. And I do believe, looking back at that 2020 season, Brady gets a ton of credit, and the defense doesn't get nearly enough. Brady threw 3 interceptions in the NFC title game that year in Green Bay and still won the game. In the Super Bowl, his defense was completely the story. Just taking full advantage of a ruptured Kansas City Chiefs offensive line and putting Patrick Mahomes on his back early and often. Brady's the GOAT, no question. But I do believe that he gets way too much credit for his time in Tampa, and the defense gets overlooked way too much. That defense was sensational that Tom Brady had in Tampa. And the point I'm making, bringing it back full circle, is that I do believe that he did quit on the New England Patriots In 2019, in my opinion, Tom Brady was rather checked out. And to those who don't remember, his final pass as a Patriot was picked off by Logan Ryan. That doesn't change his legacy. That doesn't change his greatness. It doesn't change the fact that he's the NFL's greatest winner. But Brady was never in that situation. So it's easy to say what you would or wouldn't do if you were not in that situation. He replaced the Patriot legend in Drew Bledsoe, and Bledsoe was gone rather quickly. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. When you want to move on for something healthier, I don't necessarily think it means that you're quitting on your team. If anything, I think the New York Giants quit on Jones. That was nothing short of a financial decision, similar to what the Denver Broncos had going on with Russell Wilson just a year ago. Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans. Oh, lastly on Brady, before I forget this. Tom Brady feels that quarterbacks should be fined if they are sliding too late, or at least be penalized in games to kind of change that. Now, this one I have a little more merit on. Not necessarily what happened in the Trevor Lawrence game most recently, but in general. I think it's very unfair to defenders to have to play the way they do. And I do feel that quarterbacks slide a little too late with intentions of trying to get that flag. And what happened to Lawrence is ugly. What happened to Lawrence, you don't want to see on any game day. But I think there has to be a happy medium. Because one thing I will say when it comes to playing football is that if you're playing not to get hurt or not to hurt somebody, you're probably going to get hurt yourself. And I do believe that playing defense in today's NFL has never been more unfair. I understand that with CTE, they have to protect these players in a bigger neurological way. But there still has to be a happy medium. Because I've seen defenders get injured because of the fact that it's almost like unnatural the way that they have to stop. You can't even really breathe on a quarterback these days a second after they get rid of the ball without drawing a 15-yard penalty. And I think quarterbacks that played in the 80s and 70s, even the 90s, probably laugh at what they're seeing in the NFL today. All right. Jacksonville Jaguars 2-10 taking on the Tennessee Titans at 3-9. Draft position. Nothing more to say about this one. No Trevor Lawrence. He's shut down for the year. Mac Jones was awful. Give me the Tennessee Titans 24. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars 10. Nothing to see here. The Atlanta Falcons will be traveling to Minnesota. 6-6 Falcons, who are trying desperately to hold on to the NFC South, trying to hold off a team that they swept, Brady's former team, the Tampa Bay Bucks. But I feel that the Buccaneers are showing a lot more fight. One of the reasons that the Falcons got out to that lead is because in one fateful Monday night game, the Buccaneers lost both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Evans is back. Baker Mayfield overcoming a lot of dings. He's been playing kind of hurt all year, showing his toughness, showing his mettle. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in my opinion, are going to find a way to win this division. This is Kirk Cousins' homecoming of sorts, as he was a Minnesota Viking for the last few years, led them to a 13-win campaign a couple of years ago. But he's not playing good football right now. And the Falcons look like a team that doesn't know who they are. And when watching the Falcons, it seems like you never really know what they're going to do. I think I think the Vikings defense is better. I think the Vikings are better coached. And I think Sam Darnold is less likely to make that crucial mistake than Kirk Cousins is. I think the Falcons' losing streak continues. However, I think it'll be close. Give me the Vikings 27. Give me the Falcons 23. And we'll see what the Falcons do if they can hold off Tampa. But Tampa keeps winning the South. And I think despite getting swept by the Falcons, they're going to find a way to do it again. Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Carolina Panthers, a Panthers team who's been playing a lot better lately. After benching Bryce Young and bringing him back into the fold, he has played more respectfully. But the Philadelphia Eagles right now are looking like a machine. on the back and shoulders of one number 26, Saquon Barkley. He's enjoying his best year as a pro, definitely his best year since his rookie campaign with the Giants when he won Rookie of the Year. I say to myself when I watch the Eagles consistently, where would this team be without 26? Well, that's not something that they have to worry about right now. But I must say that he has put his heart into everything he has done with this team this year. He has been anything that you would want out of a free agent acquisition. His 300 plus yard game just a couple of weeks ago, truly phenomenal. And the irony of all of this is that he has a chance to break the single season rushing record against his former team, the Giants, in week 18. I think he's going to do it. He showed the Giants mercy in their first meeting, taking himself out of the game when he could have had a career best. I don't necessarily know if that was a decision because he was playing the Giants to show some mercy and he has friends over there, or if it was just that he was just trying to be the consummate teammate. I'm going to go with the latter. Barkley has always been a very unselfish player when it comes to statistic value. He wants to win. That's one thing I will always credit him for. As the game goes, I do expect the Panthers to compete in the first half, but too much Saquon, too much of a good O-line, and I don't think that the Carolina Panthers are going to be able to get behind that Philadelphia secondary. That secondary has vastly improved since last year. Zach Bourne having a hell of a year as well. Give me the Eagles 34. Give me the Carolina Panthers 20. I expect this game to be close at halftime. Eagles will pull away midway into the third. And I think the only reason why this might not be an instant blowout is because sometimes it's hard when you're playing teams that don't have anything to lose. And it's not about overlooking somebody. It's just when you're going where the Eagles are going right now, whether you're playing a good team or a bad team, you're always going to get everybody's best punch initially. And Carolina has been playing better lately. But give me the Eagles by 2 touchdowns. Done with the football segment for the picks. But I do want to hit on this guy. Juan Soto, where will he land? How much will he make? How long will this take? Well, according to Scott Boras, he said that his client is in the process of eliminating teams that he wants to go to that are in the mix. The Boston Red Sox have been trending upwards in this sweepstakes, but I personally believe that they're being name dropped because of the fact that they are the main rival of the New York Yankees. I said this going in, and I stand by it. I think the two biggest threats to steal Juan Soto from the Yankees are the crosstown rival Mets and the team that they lost to in the World Series, talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers. Ultimately, the way I think this plays out is that I think the Yankees have the last say. If the Yankees really want Juan Soto, I think they're going to get the final crack at matching whatever the Mets and Dodgers throw at him. But I will say this. Although the Dodgers could pretty much have anybody they want, I don't think that'll be the driving force for Soto to leave. I'm more concerned about the Mets for one simple reason. In New York, Aaron Judge is the man no matter what. He is the captain. And I do think to a level, the sacrifice that Juan Soto has to make if he sticks with the Yankees is that even if he's outperforming Judge, he will essentially be the number 2. But on the flip side of that, he is considerably younger than Judge. Now, if this guy gets 640 or 650 or whatever have you over 13, 14 years, that is going to run into the end of the Aaron Judge career where Soto will essentially be the next guy. Will Soto put in the kind of time and the kind of performance where he could be the captain after Judge? I mean, it's certainly possible. You know, what Juan Soto did last year for the Yankees was nothing short of incredible. And seeing Giancarlo Stanton have his share of Reggie Jackson moments was pretty entertaining as well. But if there's one deterrent to not come back to the Yankees, I think it's that Juan Soto might feel that his star is not big enough. Where in Queens, I mean, you're talking, this is like the kind of stuff where you had the Brooklyn Dodgers, the New York Giants, and of course the New York Yankees that had their big 3. whether it be Mantle, Mays, Snyder, things of that nature. And I think by Soto going to the Mets, that could ultimately be. But what he and Aaron Judge accomplished together as teammates was pretty magical, pretty majestic. And the God's honest truth is we haven't seen that kind of production in terms of home run value since Mantle and Maris in the magical 61 season. So it will be interesting. But ultimately, I think the Yankees keep him. Whether it's the right move for the organization or not remains to be revealed. There are plenty of contingency plans if Soto goes. But right now, everyone in Major League Baseball is kind of just waiting it out to see how this plays out. And that's where I'm at right now with that. So we'll see. Final thoughts here. NFL Hall of Fame. Tom Coughlin getting snubbed. I must admit, this bothers me to a level. Tom Coughlin, in my opinion, the second greatest coach in the Super Bowl era for the New York Football Giants, second to only Bill Parcells. Ask any Giant fan if they miss Tom Coughlin. We have only made the playoffs twice since his departure. Excuse me, once since his departure. Twice. McAdoo, and most recently 2022. But it has been a bumpy road for the Giants since unceremoniously dumping Tom Coughlin, but yet keeping Jerry Reese. And a lot of people say that Reese won that first Super Bowl with a lot of Accorsi players. And, while I credit him for having a hell of a 2007 draft, he most certainly did not do well in the war room after that, with the exception of some easy, honest picks like an Odell Beckham Jr. or a Landon Collins. As Tom Coughlin goes, give you a little bit about his resume. Two-time Super Bowl champion, taking down Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, once as a wild card and once as the only single-digit win value to run the table and win a Super Bowl. The New York Giants of 2011 are the only 9-win team to win a Super Bowl. He also did that by going into Lambeau those two different playoff runs, which is incredible. The New York Giants hold the most playoff road victories in Lambeau Field. The other impressive metric of this is that only one of these games was played at home. So the road warrior mentality definitely went a long way. And I think about some of the teams the Giants beat. 18-0 New England 07. They defeated a 15-1 Packer team in 2011 that was looking to repeat as they had won the Super Bowl the previous year. The 12-4 07 Dallas Cowboys, on a lot of metrics, are probably the second best team in the NFL. But because of what the Patriots were doing in the AFC, they got overshadowed. After getting swept in the regular season, the Giants won the final playoff game in the old Texas Stadium, which brings a smile to my face seeing Jerry Jones's dismay. Mike Holmgren, another one of my all-time favorites, one of my late father's all-time favorites, gets a push over Tom Coughlin. But I do believe TC will make the Hall of Fame sooner than later. But I think about what he did with Expansion Jacksonville. Second year of existence, taking them to an AFC title game. That was the 1996 season. Then, in 99, taking them to another one. He had success at Boston College. His biggest win, undeniably, 1993, South Bend, Indiana, basically screwing Notre Dame out of their share of the national title because back then the BCS did not exist. We discussed that with William Barnum Floyd, who was on that Seminoles team. Tom Coughlin will be in soon. I just hope it's not ridiculous where they make him wait. There's only limited spots when you talk about contributors and coaches. But on a more positive note, here's a guy that I think is finally going to get in. The incomparable Sterling Sharp. I think it's crazy to think that this guy's not in already. Because if they say that they don't really value postseason stuff when voting, There is literally no reason why Terrell Davis should be in and he shouldn't be. They should both be in. 7-year career, cut way short. Led the league in receiving 4 different times. This was a league where you still had Jerry Rice. And he only played with the great Brett Favre for a short while. Unfortunately, in the 94 season in Tampa, final game of the year, he had a neck injury that he was never able to recover from. And it was painful on a lot of levels. Had he not been injured, he would have played his brother Shannon in the Super Bowl. It's been well documented that Shannon gave him his Super Bowl ring when they beat the Packers and kept the other one for himself. One of the most emotional Hall of Fame speeches was seeing Shannon just give all the roses to his older brother, Sterling. I'm old enough to say I remember Sterling play. But a lot of these kids don't realize how good this man was. And I think it's incredible that he has had to wait this long, but I'm happy that he is this close to getting in. When I look at everybody on this Hall of Fame ballot, modern era, the older guys, the coaches, this is the most deserving guy because he has waited this long. I really hope they get it right. I really hope he finally takes his rightful place because I'll be honest with you. Everybody has Jerry Rice as the GOAT of receivers. But when this man was in the league, he was neck and neck with Jerry Rice. So good luck to you, Sterling. I hope you get in. One other thing on my final thought. This guy's quarterback, Eli Manning. I want to ask the viewers, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? It's going to be tough for Eli because they do not have to select more than 3. And when I see some of the names that are on this list that should be surefire, check plus, easy in, you got a guy like a Luke Kuechly. You got another Carolina Panther like a Steve Smith Sr. It's going to be very tough for Eli to get in on this first ballot if they don't extend it to 5. Terrell Suggs, in my opinion, on the cusp, on the border of being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, the Eli stuff has always been interesting convo because, you have the 500 record for the career, but you have the 2 phenomenal playoff runs. Ultimately, if Eli does not get in on crack 1, I think it's because of the limited amount of times that he made the Pro Bowl. Now, personally, I think Eli played in one of the best, most competitive eras of the quarterback position in the National Football Conference. You had Breeze, you had Rodgers, you mixed that with the Favre era, you had Romo, you had Dak. So many great quarterbacks. He also had Matt Stafford for a while in there, But ultimately, I think a player's greatness is defined by what they do in the biggest moments. And outside of Montana and Brady, you'd be hard-pressed to find a guy that was bigger in the big moments than Eli Manning, maybe Patrick Mahomes. But I look at it on a lot of different metrics. How hard is it to play in the biggest media empire in the world? New York is not for everyone. And I think Eli Manning, time and time again, really quieted his doubters and in the biggest moments just performed at a high level. And it's not just about the rah-rah stuff. When Eli walked away from the league, he was 7th in touchdowns, and he was top 10 in every passing metric. 366 touchdowns, very good. The 240 interceptions, not so great. But also take into consideration that Eli played in an offense that, for the most part, was a run-first offense. He also played in an era where you could still really get after the quarterback. And I think that Iron Man streak that unfortunately Ben McAdoo unceremoniously broke up is one of the check pluses that also needs to be thought about when looking at Eli. He owns the most passing yards for a single postseason to this day, which happened in 2011. And when you look at difficulty of how to get there, not only defeating the greatest quarterback of all time twice, but arguably the greatest coach of all time twice, there's so many reasons why Eli should be first ballot. But one thing I don't want people to think is that Eli only got in on the first ballot because of who his brother is, because that would be an egregious indictment. you can make an argument that Eli Manning was bigger in the big moments than his brother, and his brother's a 4-time league MVP. Out of breath. Really enjoyed this show. If you haven't already, please make it a point, like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Gonna get a little Christmas shopping done. I hope you guys have a phenomenal Thursday. Enjoy the game tonight. I think the Packers are going to win, but it's going to be very entertaining. Take care, everyone.